Good morning, everyone. How are you? We're about to start again our second round of sessions for the day. I hope you had a nice night. So I'm just in that giving this space and the room to Bill. He's part of Volcated and he's going to introduce a little bit of the tech, a little bit of how are they going to work in the hackathon, what are the rules for their track. So I think you're on stage. Yeah.
Yep. Hi, everyone. Thank you. So welcome to the Polkadot workshop for the Crecimiento Hackathon. So we are going to go a little bit over the basics of Polkadot, how it works, the two particular things that we are looking for. However, I want to be clear that if you have a separate idea on something else to work on for Polkadot, we're also open to that. So let's start with just the who I am. So my name is Bill Laboon. I'm the Director of Education and Governance Initiatives at Web3 Foundation in Zug, Switzerland. I'm here in beautiful Buenos Aires for the next week or so. I'll be here for Merge as well after this. So let me give you an idea of the philosophy of Polkadot. The idea is, and always has been, that the future of Web3 is not a single blockchain, that there is not one blockchain that works the best for every single use case. And sometimes it makes sense to have your own blockchain, and sometimes it makes sense to use another blockchain. But Web3 depends on the fact that all of these blockchains can interact with each other. If you have an NFT on this chain, you should be able to send it to another chain. Or if you have an asset on one chain, you should be able to move it to another chain that better fits your needs. So the idea of Polkadot is it is not a blockchain. It is actually a set of blockchains that all work together and talk to each other securely. So we actually have 43 of these blockchains running on what we call the relay chain, which is a chain that essentially coordinates all of these other blockchains. These blockchains, we call them parachains. They are essentially a type of enshrined rollup that are automatically decentralized and allow each other to communicate. So how do you do this? One of the ways is with Substrate, the Polkadot SDK, the Polkadot Software Development Kit, which is a flexible and extensible framework built in Rust that allows you to build your own blockchain. And I mentioned this in my talk the other day here, that even though the Polkadot SDK was really developed for making chains on Polkadot, technology is actually very useful, and quite a few ecosystems have been using Polkadot SDK even for building their own chains. So for instance, BitTensor is built with Substrate, the Polkadot SDK, Avail Network, XX Network, the Midnight sidechain on Cardano. So this is really a very useful, battle-tested framework that has been used in a lot of different ecosystems to build blockchains. And one of the really cool things about this is that it allows you to very quickly decide what you want in your blockchain and what you don't want. So you're not developing things from scratch. We have what we call palettes, which give features to your blockchain. So here you have, for instance, various palettes that are available, and there's something like 50 or 60 available in the default, the default GitHub repo, and there are several hundred others that are there that you can choose from. Most teams that develop these do them open source. So you can grab them and say, okay, I want to have indices. I want to have the ability to have shortened forms of addresses. I want to have staking. I want to have a super user. I want smart contracts. I don't want smart contracts. I want the ability to timestamp things. I want to have a static treasury. All kinds of things you can just pick and choose and say, I want this in my blockchain. And we actually have some defaults, so you can very quickly have your own blockchain up and running. If you look at the docs.polkadot.com website, there's a really nice tutorial for starting your own blockchain. As I mentioned already, Polkadot is active. It went live in May of 2020. So it's been live producing blocks for 5 years now. So this is not some absolute brand new untested thing. It's actually at this point quite battle hardened. There are 43 parachains. It's upgraded 63 times with no forks, where we allow forkless upgrades where new code gets pushed out directly to the system, and over 1,000 of these runtime upgrades across the ecosystem. So one of the nice things is that when you're building on Polkadot, that you can very quickly upgrade, and without coordination among the community, you can just put a vote for we want to upgrade, and boom, the system upgrades. So it's actually really good if you're looking to build a blockchain and have a very fast turnaround time to evolve. So we have two things that we're looking for. If you've read the instructions for what we're looking for this hackathon, one is payment options. And we actually have extremely low fees. We're a sharded blockchain. We've had, and on real live networks, we've had over 143,000 transactions per second. And this also means that transactions are very cheap. So stablecoin transfers are well under a cent. Generally, we're looking at half of a US cent for stablecoin transfers, which you can compare to other networks. That's extremely cheap. And even when we did a deliberate attempt to spam the network by sending out as many transactions as possible, which again well over 100,000 transactions per second for a sustained amount of time, fees never even increased. We never even reached the point where fees would have to increase. So sending stables or other payment options is something we'd be very interested in seeing more more work done, more tools, etc. The other thing that we're interested in is help with our on-chain governance system. So Polkadot has a very, very advanced on-chain governance system. All decisions are made by the DOT holders. And we actually are also, we consider ourselves the world's largest DAO, since the Polkadot ecosystem, the entire ecosystem runs on the relay chain, which is governed solely by DOT holders. So you can see there's actually quite a very large market cap. Even at today's prices, I looked this morning, we've got almost $10 billion in market cap that is really controlled by the Polkadot DAO, and including a non-chain treasury, which is $192 million US in various assets. So not just DOT, but also stable coins and coins from various partners in the ecosystem. We've spent over 50 million DOT. So over $400 million worth of US dollars worth of DOT has already been spent from the treasury, again, always decided by the DOT holders. And it does some really cool stuff, like we have a Polkadot technical fellowship, which is automatically paid for by swapping DOT for stablecoins and paying the salaries of the technical fellowship. We had over 1,000 treasury proposals, and we also have bounties on this, where we say we're looking for something specific, events, marketing, etc., and then it is controlled by the network itself. So how this works is there are various tracks, as we call them, that have different powers. So treasurer can spend any amount of money. Small tipper can only spend a small amount of money. We can cancel other referendums. We can do plain text wishing for change, asking the developers to do something. We can modify staking parameters or roll up leases. All kinds of interesting things can be done through OpenGov because it controls the entire network. However, there are some complications to this. It is it's complicated, a little bit complicated to understand. I have some links for going more into depth on how governance works. But essentially, you vote, and once you get enough what we call support and approval, so support is what is the percentage of all DOT that's available to vote that's voting in favor, and approval, which is the percentage of DOT that's voting on this particular referendum to pass. So you need to have both of these go above a certain level in order for it to pass. And we have quite a few referenda. This is actually from like 5 minutes before the talk. I just updated this slide. We have right now 29 referenda up for vote. And so this is a lot of different things to keep track of. And so what we're looking for is tools that can help with participating in OpenGov. So this could be something like notifications when there's a new referendum. It could be artificial intelligence agents that vote on your behalf. It could be better ways to delegate your vote to other people. It's really powerful, but right now there's, I would say, a lack of tooling around it. Now there are some tools which I'll, which I'll cover in a moment. But these are the two things we're looking for. But again, I want to clarify that if you have another idea for something cool, building your own blockchain, building your own blockchain on Polkadot that does something else, we're also open to other ideas. So please, feel free to reach out if you see me around. I'm wearing a very bright blue shirt today, so you can probably see me from a distance. Please feel free to ask me. Or we also have Jakub from Hydration, one of the rollups on Polkadot, who is also here and can answer your questions. And he actually is much more in the weeds in terms of programming every day, so he can answer your questions. I'm sure he'll be able to answer your questions. So I wanted to just give a few spots for finding more information about Polkadot, about governance, about payments. So just general Polkadot information, if you're interested, we have the Polkadot Wiki, which has been around since 2019, so before the network launched, actually, which is just an absolute wealth of information about how Polkadot works, all the details of it, and even the history of Polkadot. Docs.polkadot.com has a lot of developer documentation, tutorials, workshops, etc. If you are interested in you actually want to learn how to build things. And if you find yourself having problems, you might want to go to support.polkadot.network, where there is a huge list of questions and answers. And we also do have people that can help you there. However, it is an email system, and these people take off weekends. And so you probably won't get a response over the weekend, but there's links there to all kinds of different channels like Discord, Matrix, Telegram, etc., where you can also go and see if anyone is around that could help you if you're building on Substrate. So in terms of governance resources, so getting data about governance, if you go to dune.com/substrate, there are a lot of different charts, etc., about what's happening in Polkadot. You can get that data. Polkadot.subsquare.io and Polkadot.polkassembly.io both have lots of text. It allows people to vote from there, so you can access their interfaces and see what people are saying about different referenda. OG Tracker, OpenGov Tracker, is our way of looking at previous referenda and seeing if they have if they've done what they said they're going to do. And OpenGov.watch has this as well as some other things. You can see what's happening in OpenGov in real time. So they're really great sources just for data. And if you're looking for some other piece of data or how to interact with it, please just feel free to ask. There may be something else in the ecosystem that meets your needs. In terms of payment resources, so we have a hydration network, and again, their CTO is here today, Jakub. You'll also see him at the Polkadot table. If you're looking to do swaps or transfers, this is probably the best place to do it, and he can help you interface with it. Any Polkadot wallet can interface with hydration. Wiki.polkadot.network assets can tell you more about how assets work on Polkadot. So assets, another word might be tokens for these. So if you are familiar with Ethereum, think like various ERC20s, although this also covers things like NFTs, etc. So these are native on Polkadot. You don't need to have a separate contract for them. And so you can find out more information there. I also have on my personal account, the github.com/Laboon asset sender, a simple application that allows you to send assets, tokens, to a list of addresses that you have. So again, very simple, but you can see how the interface works. It's written in Python with the substrate Pi interface, which allows you to access any substrate-based chain. Again, pretty straightforward. Feel free to look at the code, and it's MIT license. Feel free to copy it. Take what you need if you want to do something with it. So again, if you have other ideas or are looking for something more specific, please feel free to ask. Finally, some programming resources. I already mentioned docs.polkadot.com, which is where we have a lot of different tutorials and workshops for learning how to build things on Polkadot. There is also, as part of that, a Poppy, the Polkadot API, if you are looking to do something a little bit more low level. The Pi substrate interface, which I already mentioned, allows you to access everything via Python. So you can do whatever that you want to interface with via Python using a pretty simple interface. And again, happy to help you with that if people are having issues with it. And finally, the Polkadot Dev Console at polkadot.js.org/apps, which will let you, interface with the chain directly. So if you've used like the command line for Geth, or something, or the Bitcoin CLI, then this should be relatively straightforward to figure out, except it's a UI form of it. But it is a very low level. So it's definitely very developer focused, but lets you do anything that you want to with the chain. So again, if you're looking for some other resources, please feel free to ask. Substrate, as I mentioned, is written in Rust. There's a lot of tools out there written in JavaScript or TypeScript. And Pi substrate interface, which I happen to like, is in Python. But there are some other less supported libraries out there in different languages. If you're looking for something, just feel free to ask. So thank you, everyone. Again, my name is Bill Laboon. So if you see me around here, please feel free to say hi, ask me any questions that you have. And here's just a few other resources that if you're interested in staying up to date on Polkadot. So that is my talk, but I wanted to make sure I left time for questions. So if anyone has questions, please feel free to ask. I don't know that we have any questions, so. All right, well, thank you very much. I appreciate having the time to speak with you today. And as I mentioned, please feel free, I'll be at the Polkadot table, just stop by and I'll do my best to see how I can help you.
Hi again. So we're about to start the second workshop of the day, as John from Manson. But before that, I just want to tell all of the hackers that it's possible to submit to every track. So on these, you don't have to decide which one since the beginning. You can go for Manson, you can go for Polkadot, you can apply to whatever the track you want, and that's available already in the app. So just this little warning for anybody who has doubts on it, that you can submit for many tracks in the hackathon. And once said this, it's the turn for John from Antel to start his workshop.
Hello, everyone. Hope everyone can hear me and see me. It's my first time in Argentina. Super excited. People here are super friendly. So I'm happy to be presenting my workshop today. It's going to be around Mantle. It's going to be around AI. So technically, you don't even need to build on Mantle, but of course, that's preferred because Mantle is cool. Okay, so let me present my screen real quick. Um, Here they are. So, boom. Let me know if you can see the slides. All good. Alrighty. So the workshop is called Build AI Apps on Mantle, but to be honest, you could build AI apps in general. AI apps, why apps? It's because I don't really like the name agents. Not everything in this world are agents, guys, right? AI apps are just, you could just use the AI, right? Okay, so simply let's start with what's Mantle. Mantle, okay, where do I start, right? There are so many things about Mantle, and internally we like to refer and explain what Mantle is in terms of innovation pillars. So starting obviously with Mantle Network, one of our main products. Mantle Network is an OP stack L2 general purpose blockchain. So you could build anything that you could build on Ethereum, Optimism, Base, or any other L2, you could also build on Mantle. So, well, how are we different? In terms of infra stack, we are different because we are modular, right? So this gives us kind of the plug and play ability that could allow us to, for example, down the road, and that's actually what we are planning, like change execution environments, or that's what we're actually doing also with data availability, right? We're not posting DA onto Ethereum, but we're posting onto EigenDA, which we recently went on mainnet with. One of our other products is Mantle Ethereum or METH protocol. It's now like the fourth largest LSD protocol. So think of Lido, but on Mantle and much more modern. We also have Ignition FBTC. It's now called Function BTC, which allows for Bitcoin to be DeFiable, basically, right? You could use Bitcoin for DeFi and earn yield, basically activating your stale Bitcoin. And we have like three other products that are TBD or coming soon, right? So one of them is enhanced index fund. Yes, we're going to have an enhanced index fund for retail users to invest in a basket of assets. Mantle banking, like no info there. That's just coming soon, as well as Mantle X. So stay tuned. So I briefly mentioned Mantle and EigenDA. So we recently went live with EigenDA on mainnet, which makes us a Validium, technically. That allows us to scale to magnificent amounts of transactions and throughput and all that stuff. The second big thing we have is Mantle and Succinct. So on our roadmap, as I told, our modularity allows us to basically plug and play different execution environments. So now our execution environment is the OP stack. But down the road, later in 2025, we are going to switch to Succinct SP1, which will allow us to become a ZK EVM. Well, I mean, it provides a lot of benefits, things like reducing down the withdrawal window to like instant or close to instant instead of the 7-day challenge period. But that's all exciting. That's our partners, that's our infra partners. What does that mean to you? To you, that really means one thing. You can build apps. You can build all sorts of apps and not think about all the infra, which is what we are trying to figure out for you. So in terms of apps, I really like AI apps. I think a lot of people like AI apps. So let's just talk about AI apps. State of AI tooling on Mantle in general, and not on Mantle, like anywhere. The problem with AI tooling nowadays is that there's just so many of them. It's like the framework hell. It kind of reminds me of like the Web2 space, like front end, like React and all that stuff, right? There's just so many frameworks, and all of them have different level of abstractions, of complexities, of customizability. So, just to name a few: Eliza, Virtuals, AI SDK, and there's probably like millions and millions of others that I don't know. But yeah, the gist of it is that most of them most of them are made for beginners, right? So a lot of them are actually like built on top of other tools, and they abstract away the dev experience. That is great. That is like the good thing about it is that you can quickly get your AI agent or AI app up and running. But the problem here is that when you're building production apps, when you're building something more complex than just a social AI agent, it becomes really hard to debug. So the problem with a lot of these frameworks is that it's not low level enough. Okay, for example, I like it pretty simple, as you can see by my slides, most likely. I'm just going to be using AI SDK from Vercel, which I think is like the perfect gold line, because why? AI SDK is doesn't go too low level. You're not calling directly the OpenAI APIs, but because calling the OpenAI API is opinionated, right? You're going to be using just the OpenAI API, but with the Vercel AI SDK, you could use different models and just in general have a really good time building AI apps. And Goat SDK is optional, but I used Goat SDK in this case to just do some on-chain interactions on Mantle. And let's go straight into the basics of AI SDK. They probably have the most amazing package name there is. So you can just go npm install AI, right? That's their package name, which is absolutely basic. Secondly, you just basically install the @AI SDK/provider for whatever provider you want to use. So whether that's OpenAI, Anthropic, or both, you could switch them at runtime, which is pretty good. So the two main functions that you may use in Vercel AI SDK is the stream text and the stream object function. There are actually also generate text and generate object counterparts, but I'm going to talk about them in a bit. So what this allows you is these functions allow you to talk to the model, right? That's what you want. You want to ask the model something, and they want the model to give you back some, the response. So streaming just means that instead of waiting for the whole response to generate, you give the user something, right? I think you remember from OpenAI or Grok or whatever chat app you're using. The text in the response of the AI goes gradually, right? So that's where the streaming is useful. You give the user some feedback and not wait for the whole response to generate. So that's the difference between generate text and stream text. Same thing with objects. You could structure your output. So a lot of the times, especially in more complex examples, you want the LLM to return some sort of a JSON object instead of just text. So that's where stream object comes from. So this is the basics of how to call stream text. We are going to be using stream text in this example. So basically just install and import stream text from AI. We are going to be using OpenAI, specifically the GPT-4o mini model, just because it's cheap. You don't. A lot of the times you don't need to go overboard with really complex models. I'm talking about 3.7 Sonnet. That model is super expensive. Just use something simple, right? Then also having system and tools. I'm going to be mentioning that later. So for those who don't know or who know, this is just a Next.js backend endpoint. So this is a post request to /API/chat. So here we basically just take the prompt. So the prompt that the user might have inputted, or you do it in your backend, however you want to kind of do it. And then you call stream text. Right, so what's important about calling stream text here? It looks super simple, of course, but there's a lot to it. Starting from line 13, the model, again, as I mentioned, we are using GPT-4o mini. I think the model choice is super important. and a lot of times people don't put that much emphasis on that. But again, there's some tips about that later. The prompt, as I also already mentioned, that's the user input. And then line 15 is the system prompt, okay? The system prompt is one of the most important things when you're building with AI, because that's where you guide, that's where you tell your AI what it is, right? Like a lot of people ask me a lot of people ask me what is the difference between ChatGPT, between like Grok, between V0, Bolt Dev, and all of these like chat apps that people use. I mean, primarily the difference is the system prompt, right? A lot of them have different system prompts, and it's just the way that like prompt engineering works. You guide your LLM to be I don't know, to give you responses in certain ways, right? So for example, for this example, we just use a really simple 15-line system prompt, but usually it goes on and on. So for us, it's just your helpful assistant that can answer questions. You can do stuff on the blockchain, a few rules, right? Make your responses super quick, like 1 to 2 paragraphs. And yeah, like all that stuff, be concise, right? That's what I want from my LLM. I mean, an example of like a production grade system prompt from V0 would be like very similar, right? It would say V0 is an advanced AI coding assistant created by Vercel and all that stuff. Their system prompt is more than 2,000 lines, right? I think, again, that just goes back to the point, like it's super important to make it detailed, and because that's going to allow your AI to be whatever you want it to be. Some tips, right? Choose the right model. The GPT-4 series is really good at like reasoning and like in general calling tools. I think like in like moving forward, I'm going to be talking about tools. So I think keeping the number of tools to like less than 5 is also really important for the AI to be able to choose which one is the most important. Also use semantically meaningful names and descriptions, as well as kind of including examples in the descriptions of what those tools are. We're going to get back to this. Yeah, so the next thing is obviously just importing the tools and then setting the max number of steps. I think the maximum number of steps is also super important, because you want, basically every step is an action, right? The LLM takes a step as like either you generate something or you call a tool. So if you set the max steps to 1, it's just gonna like call a tool and that end there. So what we want is obviously an AI agent that would think by itself. So allowing for multiple steps is quite important. And then, yeah, again, the question is, how do we make LLMs actionable? How do we make LLMs use the blockchain, understand the blockchain, and all that stuff? So quite simply, tools, right? I already mentioned them briefly. I'll come back to that slide. I think it kind of jumped away from me a little bit. Yeah, so I mean, you could build anything with tools. RAG chatbots, if you know what that is, that's utilizing tools. MCP servers are basically also part of tools. All of that. So the gist of tool calling is actually pretty simple. I mean, as I already said, tools are kind of objects that are called by the model to perform specific tasks. So in the Vercel AI SDK, there's the AI SDK core that contain basically 3 elements to tools. There's 3 things that you need to know about calling tools. So first is the description, obviously. So that's what tells the AI what the tool is. So again, be very concise here, but super detailed. Parameters. So you may know about Zod. Zod is a TypeScript. Basically, it will help you create a schema and the right typing for your parameters. Or you could use a normal JSON schema as well. Again, to define your parameters, right? So to tell the LLM basically, before you call this tool, make sure you have these like amounts of data and like these parameters before calling the tool and passing that into the function. And then the most important function that actually calls the tool is the execute part, right? So it's an optional async function, and it generates a result. So I'm going to show you that in a bit. Yeah, so basically what you can do is just, from a separate file, just create all the tools and then import them, just how I did. Tools actually take the format of like record string tool. So, if you're doing TypeScript, make sure that's settled. I'm going to be going through a demo. So like, if you want to, you want to scan the QR code, now is the time. I'll have this QR code later as well. So yeah, do scan it and go through the code and all that. I'm going to be going through the presentation as well. So yeah, however you want. So the first example I'm going to show is how to get MNT price via the API. We want to allow the LLM to call external APIs as part of tools. So in this example, we're going to be just getting the MNT price using the CoinGecko API. So something like this, right? So you're going to have the LLM basically just go on and fetch the price from CoinGecko. The prompt would be something simple like, what is the price of Mantle's MNT token in USD, right? And the LLM would know exactly what to do. So here's what the code looks like. The function would be called, or the tool would be called get Mantle price. The description would be very simple: get the price of Mantle's MNT in token in USD in real time. This is actually a pretty important part. For some reason, it wasn't working for me without this in real time part. There are no parameters. Of course, if you want to just fetch like arbitrary tokens, you can set the parameters as a string of the token name and then pass it into the API. But in this case, we are not. I'm just showing you a very, very simple example. Again, the execute part is the most important one, where we actually do the fetch request to the CoinGecko API. And I mean, the fascinating part of this is that the LLM does have understanding of when to use this tool and how to use this tool, which is, I mean, quite fascinating to me. Again, just to go back, this is what it does, right? I actually have this in the demo. So if you run this demo luckily, you'll have a good starting spot if you're going to build something with AI. Especially on chain. It's again, it has AI SDK and Code SDK. Yeah, the next example I want to show is like sending MNT using Code SDK. You don't have to use Code SDK in this case, but I mean, Code SDK allows you to have this plugin base, and you know, you could create your own plugins on top of Code SDK and all that stuff. So that's super sweet. And yeah, again, sending MNT is, you know, basically this one is a little bit different because you have to give the LLM your API key if you trust it enough, right? And yeah, allow it to basically manipulate your account. So just simply, yeah, sending one MNT from my address to some other address, that's the prompt. And it will return with a transaction hash if it's successful. And of course, if it's not successful, it's going to return with a reverse message. And yeah, here's what it is, right? So obviously, we need a VM client. So either VM or VAGME or whatever the you know, blockchain client you're using. In this case, I'm using the wallet client from VM. Right, so you need the account itself. Since we are not doing any wallet connection or anything like that, it's just a private key and an environment variable. So yes, there's a .env.example in the demo. So feel free to just yeah, copy the file and fill up the blanks. There's also the transport layer, so the Mantle RPC URL or any other RPC. To be honest, you could even use like any other L2 RPC URLs, and this would work the same way. And yeah, so the send MNT tool is what's making this happen. The description is also quite simple. Just send MNT to a given address on Mantle. The parameters are the to and the amount. So again, I'm using Zod to really make sure that these are like fairly typed, right? So yeah, the to parameter is a string, and also the amount is also a string. And then you go on to the execution part. So yeah, this is just the gist of like using Goat, right? You create a wallet client again from with what we use. We wrap it into a VM function from Goat. Then we just grab the plugin from you know, get tools and push it onto our existing tool stack, right? So we're basically using Goat tools together with our own custom tools, which is, I think, is pretty important because, I mean, obviously you're not going to be just using one set of like tools only from Go SDK or only from other frameworks. You're going to have to have a mix and match if you're kind of, you know, if it's complex, you know. So I think, yeah, in Go SDK, I don't think they have it really correctly written in the docs. I mean, the GitHub. I'll correct them later, I guess. But yeah, this is what you can do to just grab the tools and use it together with everything else. And the last but not least example I want to show is the write contracts using the multi-tool call. So I mean, obviously sending MNT, getting MNT price, that's all cool. But I mean, the bulk of the functionality is going to be coming from you writing contracts, right? And I mean, there's a lot when you want to like give the ability for the AI to write contracts. It has to understand the contract. You have to fetch the API of the contract, maybe even the source code of the contract, and let the LLM just kind of do its thing and understand and semantically match everything. So that's where the multi-tool call comes from, and that's also very easily done through the AI SDK. So here's an example. On the left, we get a get contract API. Basically, right? So what the LLM is going to do is going to go and fetch the API of any arbitrary contract from MantelScan. And then on the right, it's going to use that API to basically call the transfer function of the boys NFT contract. So I mean, I could like airdrop all of you guys the boys NFT if I wanted to through this LLM, but I'm not going to. The floor is pretty high. But yeah, this is basically what it is. This example is quite lengthy, so I'm just going to break it down into 2 slides. So the first one is obviously the get contract API tool. Again, we're using 2 separate tools here. So with one prompt, the prompt here on the right, like transfer this NFT contract to whatever, just give it the contract address, and the AI or the LLM will understand that it has to go back, get the API, understand the contract, see all the functions, and then call the other tool, right? So there's more than one tool involved here. And again, going back to like max steps, feel free to play around with this number, but make sure you have enough steps to like encompass all of your like tool calling, sequence, right? So I guess a good thought experiment would be to just like imagine the hardest tool call you could have, and like set it to that amount of max tools plus 1. Yeah, just to be sure. Okay, so then yeah, here this one is get contract API. The description is also pretty simple. Get the API of this contract. I kept it like pretty short just for the demo, but you don't have to have this part of the description. Again, the parameters are also very simple. The address z.string. That's all, and that's just a call to the MantelScan API. So again, in the .env example, just put your MantelScan API key. MantelScan is built by Etherscan. So, I mean, it works the same way Etherscan works. You can just call the API and get the result. So from then, right, it gets the API of the contract, it understands the contract. We have the write contract tool as well that it's going to call right after that. The description would be to write to a contract on Mantle. An example, so I think another tip would be to put examples of inputs and outputs in the tool description, as I've done it here. So basically, I gave it the example of what the arguments would be to the function that I want to call. So yeah, I basically gave it the example and then said just use other existing tooling if you need to. Actually, you could include this line in every description. But yeah, the parameters here are also a little bit more complex. So dot describe here, by the way, is super important, because here the dot schema becomes a little bit more hard for the AI to understand. So if you describe it using the dot describe function, it's going to make it so much better. Yeah, so the address, the contract address, obviously. Function name is also the function to call, the arguments, and the API. The API is going to be fetched from a different tool. So going back, yeah, the execute function here is also pretty simple. You don't particularly need to parse the API or args. To be honest, I've tested it without like parsing. The AI still understands that it needs to parse the args, and it will do it itself, which is pretty cool. But I did it here just to be sure. And then, yeah, obviously just calling the wall client from VM to write contract and have this settled, right? So it will send you the transaction hash after it's done, or an error message if it's not, if it hasn't been successfully executed. So that was super simple. Now you can just go build, right? We have a $11,000 Mantle bounty at the Aleph Hackathon. If you scan this QR code, you will see that we have 3 tracks. So one track, the first track, is the build with AI apps. So you could use this workshop as an example to build with the AI on Mantle, and yeah, apply for that track. So we really look for like any types of use cases, not just agents, right? But yeah, if you want to build agents, like DeFi agents are cool, right? Or any sort of like AI use case would be nice. Secondly, we have like the best consumer app on Mantle. I mean, obviously, there's not enough consumer apps, I think, right? Things that tackle the challenges of real users. That's what we want to see. The other part is the best PayFi app. So any payment rails, anything that would help a normal user onboard. So on-ramping, off-ramping, stable coins, checkouts, and all that stuff. Actually, like the idea of React plugins. So maybe a checkout plugin or anything like that. So yeah, that's all PayFi. If you want to build payment infrastructure, that is the track for you. And then last but not least, actually not the last, but if you don't build something along the lines of what I just said, the 3 tracks above, yeah, just build anything. We will still consider it. That's part of our wildcard track. So yeah, you could build anything unassociated to the previous 3 bounties, and we're still going to consider it. And then last but not least now, we are partnering with Dymo Pay, the SDK that would allow you instant checkouts and, well, check it out, basically, right? It really helps with interop. I really think that you should try building with it. Yeah, so there's more information about Dymo in our chat in the Aleph Hackathon, so feel free to go into the Mantle sub-channel on the Aleph Hackathon Telegram channel. And the information is going to be there. Gianluca has provided us with a nice little description to use Dymo. So yeah, the bounty for Dymo would be $1,000. So if the best app building a Dymo would get this amount. Well, last but not least, I would urge everyone to follow Mantle Latam. That's the QR code on the left here. That's the best Latam movement for Mantle, the only Latam movement for Mantle, the best Latam movement out there, I believe so. And on the right, please follow Soda House. Soda House is the greatest, the goats of all goats of hacker houses. So basically, if you're a founder, if you're a team, and you're building something, and you have won multiple hackathons, and you think, wow, maybe it's enough hackathons, right? Maybe I should build a project of my own. Maybe I should, make this a real business and all that stuff. Consider a hacker house like Sozo House. We work with founders. We help them raise. We help them basically solve problems and just match together founders together. Anything that founders related, go to Sozo House. Check out the hacker house. It's on the right. And thank you, everyone. If there are any questions, feel free to ping me here. I don't know if there's a chat here, but yeah, feel free to ping me in the Telegram channel on the Aleph Hackathon chat as well. And thank you.